Hello, welcome to the library, everybody. This is Alexandria RPG. So if you're the first time tuning in, this is a non-profit role-playing game library. When we're not tuning into something like here on Twitch, where we try to go out to events and share the library with as many people as we can at live events, from stuff like Emerald City Comic Con, or this weekend we'll be at Grit City Comic Con in Tacoma, Washington. It's a little one-day show. December, we'll be at PAX Unplugged. But we're a nonprofit library that over the last few years has grown from less than 350 books to well over 6,000 books now. And I'm your chief librarian, David Carnahan, and got to tell you, not a real librarian. I just LARP as one. And our guest is Alan Tucker with the Indie Game Co-op. He's a writer and designer and has put out some cool stuff and has got a pretty nifty project up on Kickstarter right now. And what would you like to tell us about yourself right off the back there, Alan?
Well, greetings, everybody. I've been playing role-playing games and such since when dinosaurs walked the earth, probably back in the early '80s, and took a long break, I guess, for this thing we call life. Once in a while, it gets in the way of our gaming for quite a few years, but then kind of picked it up again here a few years ago and. Decided to, as well as play, decided to start writing and designing and doing all those things, because that was kind of my background as a writer and a graphic designer and things like that. So that's where I've been at, and I've been doing a whole bunch of projects. Got several things on the DM's Guild, Drive Through RPG, and the last couple of years here, I've gotten into the Kickstarting thing and a few projects there as well. So kind of fun.
Make it sound like playing games back in the 80s is a long time ago. I started in the 80s. I was a little kid, but, not that old yet, I swear.
I feel like I am.
Well, so you started gaming in the 80s. What was your first role-playing game then?
Dungeons and Dragons. Quickly followed up by Marvel Superheroes, Top Secret. GURPS. We did all kinds of stuff. Starfleet battles and yeah, well, all kinds of things we played.
Yeah, I start off with AD&D as well, and then I think my next one was Champions after that. So I just got more complex.
Uh-huh.
So what can you tell us about Apocalypse that you have up on Kickstarter right now?
Yeah, so we're pretty excited about this. This is it's called Apocalypse: The Complete Game Master's Guide to Ending the World, and we have really a host of star-studded creators who are writing articles of advice for GMs, for anybody who is trying to put together a campaign that they want to have centered around Apocalypse. And there's again, we've got probably over a dozen articles so far from people like Mike Shea, the Sly Flourish Lays DM guy, and Amy Vorpal, Teos Abadia, Bashir Gauss, and Aaron Roberts both wrote for Radiant Citadel that came out recently. Kate Osborne. And Kat Evans, Rich Lescafleur. Gosh, there's just there's a whole bunch we got a bunch of them listed on the Kickstarter. Omega Jones just came on actually recently. He's going to be writing an article as well. And in addition to the articles of advice, we also are going to have a number of adventure scenarios in there, which are system agnostic. So in other words, you can use these for D&D, for Marvel Heroes, any game you play. We've got fantasy, sci-fi, contemporary, all genres, everything like that. Everything epic stories that involve an apocalypse of some sort.
Somebody in the chat asked, well, why do you want to end the world? That's where I keep all my stuff. And where will I put it?
Well, but wouldn't you feel great if you could save it?
Touche.
Yeah. Now, I know in playing in the past, it seemed, always the campaigns you remember the most are the ones where you had the grand saving the world storyline, and so that it seems to be. I mean, it's something that most everybody goes through at some point when they're role playing. Because that's what you want to do as a player, is be a hero and save the world. And as a GM, what's better than building the world and then just wrecking it? I mean, that's what you do with sandcastles at the beach, right? You build a sandcastle and then you just wreck it.
Touche. So, what are some cool things within this particular project? Because you said it's a game master's guide to ending the world. So, what's like your favorite bit that you have in it thus far?
Well, Mike Shea's article, for instance, is kind of showing the GM how to frame their campaign around an apocalyptic event. He talks about having the monsters as weather. In other words, it's the story, like Night of Living Dead. The story isn't necessarily about the zombies. The story is about the people involved, and the zombies are just kind of the backdrop of that. And so that's one of the aspects that you want to consider as you're building your campaign. Teos Abadia's article is mainly about being able to channel those moments of hope and make sure that your campaign doesn't get so dour that everybody is just down in the dumps all the time, and make sure that they have moments of hope that, oh, hey, you know what, we can do this, things like that. And there's just a lot to consider when you're building a campaign that is this epic and massive and things like that. So um, I can't not get into all the articles on here, but again, there'd be over a dozen of them as it stands right now. Depending on funding, we may add more, but these are experienced GMs and designers and writers who've all done this kind of thing before, and they each had their own little thing. We asked each of them to come up with one particular thing. If you were gonna run a campaign like this, what's the first thing that you'd want to consider, and how would you go about it? And it's amazing. I didn't have to steer any of them away from anybody else's idea, because every one of them so far has come up with something completely different
Nice.
as to what they wanted to do. So yeah, it's amazing. There's just a lot of stuff in there and it's advice that's not only good for an apocalyptic campaign, really just any campaign that you want to run.
Yeah, and looking at the people we have on board, it's like really cool because you have people from that are GMs. You have game designers and designers that have created different types of games. So you've got a lot of people from different experiences, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably why you're
Yeah.
not getting any duplicated efforts.
Yeah, we wanted to create a diverse crowd for sure. That's one of the things I just love about this hobby, is the diversity. And like Kate Osborne, for instance, she's just getting into the TTRPG space, but she's going to write an article about accessibility and keeping your table accessible for all players, which is great. But with an apocalyptic event, or apocalyptic angle to it. And so yeah, again, it's terrific. And again, the scenarios are going to be all over the map. Everything from local apocalypses to universe ending type stuff, just depending on what you want to do. And we're providing the kind of what the seed event is, and who the major players are involved with it. And those NPCs aren't necessarily going to be described physically in detail, but they are going to be described in personality, goals, and motivations in detail. so that any GM, no matter what game they play, they can stick these right into their game. They can just say, "Oh well, this is an elf in my world," or "This is a plasmoid," or whatever it happens to be. If you, or lizard man, or anything they want to do. But these are the personality traits, and these are the motivations that this character has. So the GM will be able to just jump right in and say, "Okay, I know who this person is."
Yeah, and it's the type of stuff you want for your GMs, is especially if you want something that's kind of system agnostic. You give them the framework and the ability to flesh it out and build it into their, like, okay, here's all your skeleton of everything you need to do. You make the changes as necessary to fit your particular game.
Yeah, exactly.
I try to get more people to read through, because I, I don't think I've actually run a complete module ever in all the times that I've run games. Um, but I'll sit down and read them because there's great stuff in those. And, in those of us played back in with the early modules, a lot of the early modules were kind of just skeleton crew stuff. And then you started getting into the more like gigantic modules that kind of almost walked you through everything. I was like, those are cool, but now you're playing someone else's stuff. I want those ideas, but I don't want to play their game. I want to play my game with other people's ideas and bits and pieces and baubles.
Well, and what happens when the players go off and do something crazy on that? Then you're
Exactly. Yeah, I have played in some of those, and I'm like, I really want to do something, but I know that if I push the boundaries, I'm gonna break what they have made. And to me, it's not the fun of an RPG. Sitting down a tabletop RPG, it's this true sandbox. You just go do whatever you and the players and the GM are capable of doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Whatever your collective consciousness can come together to.
Right.
And that's been always one of my favorite things, is with role playing games, is you're sitting down creating these wonderful stories and memories with people. And I always love that you get people sitting down at a table that may not know each other, or may not even ever, they'd never been friends before sitting down at that table, but they will be nice to each other and they will be friends with each other, because once you get a gaming group together, you know how hard it is to get another one going. So
Yes. Very true.
you're like, man, because I remember there was high school people in my gaming group. One guy had dated the sister of another guy in the group, and when they broke up, we're like, oh man, this is gonna be the end of the game. And they kept showing up, and we're like, you guys cool? They go, oh, outside of here, no, but we just don't talk. But we do that because we don't want to ruin the group, so just please don't bring that up. We're like, Roger.
I mean, you got lucky there for sure.
Yeah, but well, they wanted to play so bad that they just, in their daily life, it was like, hey, you broke my sister's heart. Hey, didn't your sister wasn't good to me. Whatever the case was. And I was like, it's weird that you can be adults because of a role playing game.
Yeah.
16-year-old kids trying to be adults, thanks to role playing games.
There you go.
What are some other things that you've created over the years? Some other projects that you've got going?
Sure. Yeah. Well, we did actually earlier this year. This was the first project for the Indie Games Co-op, and that was called Incredible Items, and that's a 5e compatible magic item book that we did. Again, that kick-started early this year, and we've actually already delivered. The book is out, and you can find that on DriveThru RPG. Or if you want, you can get a physical copy there, but you can also go on Amazon and get it and find it there as well. And that did very well. We've got over 200 magic items in there, and some evolving artifacts and things that you can give to the players early on in the campaign, and can grow with them as they progress. So that was fun.
Oh, I like that. That's a cool idea. Evolving artifacts is like a thing that is. I mean, we all play, especially in fantasy games, where you're just kind of like cycling to find the next thing. You're like, well, I need a new battle axe,
Mhm.
or I need one that gives +1, or whatever. But if you can get
Yeah.
something cool that becomes core, the kind of a cool core piece of your character.
Yeah, I agree. It's always fun story wise to be able to have that. Plus, if you have um, go to Hero Forge and make yourself a miniature, and then you end up changing weapons, then what do you do, right?
You're like,
You gotta
okay,
go pay another fee to go get another miniature.
well, I used to have a
Um,
battle axe. Now I have a staff. Clip, clip.
yeah.
Oh, I have a battle axe again. Let me glue this back on.
um, and let's see. Anyway, well, before that, I did a project called Incredible Creatures, which was kind of the uh, way that we came up with incredible items to do for the Indie Games Co-op group. But Incredible Creatures was a monster book, and instead of having the writers create the monsters, we started with art, and then had the writers look at the art and say, okay, what is this creature? And we went that direction instead. So that was a lot of fun, and we had I want to say close to 30 pieces of art, and um, a we had four writers work on each piece, and each writer did a tier of play. So in other words, you had tier one, tier two, tier three, tier four monster for each piece of art. So there was a lot of variation in there, and it was interesting to me, at least, to see how the writers came up with different ideas for a particular piece of art.
And that's
Uh,
actually a really neat way to go about it with saying, hey, here's a monster, and you get to name it, you get to come up with stats, in getting an artist to go, hey, draw me something awesome. We're going to give it to somebody else, let them, come up with all the stats and everything.
right. Well, and usually an artist is asked the writer comes up with the monster, and then they describe what they think it looks like to the artist, and the artist has to sit down. Okay, well, I guess this is the way it is. But what we did again was we started with the art, and let the artist just go wild and create whatever they wanted, and then the writers took those and made what they wanted to out of that. And we did the same thing with the Incredible Items book as well.
Oh, that's
We
cool.
started with art and let the writers create the items from that.
Now, did you tell them to draw like a weapon in multiple stages of evolution, or say, hey, draw a weapon, then
For the artifacts, yeah, for the artifacts, I did. I let them. I said, okay, well, because we wanted a diverse collection. So I said, well, we're going to have a staff, which will be kind of a castery kind of thing, and then a set of armor. Um, there's a couple of other different weapons, and then some other, wondrous item type of things. So there's a wide variety of stuff in there for the evolving artifacts. And yeah, they drew those in. That we had either 4 or 5 stages of development um, for the item, and then again the writer then took that art and created the uh, the finished item out of that.
nice. I really like that idea, just because it's, I mean, backwards of how it's typically done.
Yeah.
Um, it's kind of, I mean, semi reminiscent of the first set of Magic the Gathering. Is with Magic the Gathering, they had no clue what they were doing. They came up with a bunch of cards, and then they went and picked art pieces to go with it. Then some of them they go, hey, can you draw me a volcanic island? Uh,
Mhm.
but they weren't 100% sure what they were doing, what they were getting,
Yeah.
which is
Well, you can ask any of my teachers in school. I always like to go backwards with stuff, so that's okay.
um, First question: Apocalypse seems like a great set of tools for game masters, but is there anything for players? How can a player character incorporate knowledge of the world's impending doom into enhancing their own narrative and gameplay?
Well, a lot of that is going to depend on your GM and kind of your session zero. But I think if your GM is building a campaign around an apocalypse, then they uh, they'll go through that with you to begin with before you start playing and say, okay, here's kind of the setting and here's what's happening. Unless it's something that develops maybe during the campaign, I guess. But your the book itself is not going to have any player options. This is specifically for GMs.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I think that in building your backstory and things like that with your group and with your GM, that's going to be something you guys go through and say, well, okay, I guess my my person wants to be a scavenger or something, whatever it happens to be, and build your character around that, knowing what's going to be happening or what is in process of happening.
Another question from the chat, which I find very neat. Grand Odyssey Games, they're in the middle of putting out a neat game. Got to peruse their book just before it went to the printers. Says, was there any piece of art that you went, what the heck am I going to do with this? Because you went art first on the creatures and the items. Did you get any art items back? You just no clue what direction to go with?
I'm trying to think. We did have some very odd stuff. I know for one of the artifacts, it was a wondrous item type of deal, and the artist came up with this just really fascinating piece. But it was its first stage starts out as a jug, and it has these kind of, I don't know what I want to say, bas relief or anyway sculpture kind of things that are attached to it or part of it with like a seashell and some other things to it. And those, as the thing evolved, then they came off, and there was a sword dagger kind of thing that came off from one of the pieces, and then another one was a watery belt and a flowing watery cape and all kinds of stuff. And I know the writer that I gave this to, they struggled with it for a little bit, but they came up with some pretty awesome stuff.
Nice. And sometimes it's those ones, it's that project that's kind of that way outside of your normal comfort zone that's going to make you come up with something cool, because you're like, what the heck? And so I being a GM, I love sitting down with players that kind of get into their ruts, like, oh, I always play clerics in D&D. Like, okay, well, you're playing a barbarian in Dungeon Crawl Classics today.
Yeah.
But I don't know how. Well,
Yeah.
now's a great time to learn.
Yeah.
And makes them a better player typically. And with GMs, I always like players trying to challenge me when I throw a situation at them. And through the library, I run basically the same core concept for a one shot of Star Wars, and none of the games, I've probably run it 100 times at least. None of the games are anywhere remotely the same, even though we start out with the same start, and I have the same kind of core points along the way. Nothing has ever remotely gone the same way twice.
Right. Well, and with these, generally what we did was we took the pieces of art and then put them up in our group, and just kind of posted them, and then let the writers say, "Oh, that's cool. I'm going to do something with that." And so the art became the inspiration, and so there wasn't, like I said, there wasn't really a lot of people saying, scratching their heads thinking, "Oh my gosh, what in the world is this?" There was always somebody that said, "Oh, I've got the perfect idea for this," and they ran with it at that point. So
Nice.
It was terrific.
That's always good to hear. Because sometimes if you do let artists, give them a little too much freedom, they'll go off the rails sometimes. But I love that as well.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to say that because I'm married to an artist, and if I don't, she'll appear out of nowhere and just stab me. Like, oh, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
She's Canadian; she'd never stab me. And another question come in. So typically, the art comes first, and the writing stems from the art. Does it ever go over? Does it ever go the other direction? Well, I mean, because you've got two projects that have kind of gone the other direction.
Right. Yeah, that was what, like I said before, generally if a writer is coming up with an adventure or something like that, they create a monster, they create a magic item, then they do all that stuff, and then the production team or that writer, depending on if they're doing it themselves, whatever, but they go to an artist and say, here's what I want, and the artist does their best to take that stuff out of their brain and put it on a piece of paper. But it was fun to go the other direction,
So,
for sure.
how did your artists react? Because I'm sure that the writers and designers were like, "Oh, this is going to be awesome," and because it's something out of the norm. How do the artists come? Because sometimes I do know artists will get they'll you give them too much leeway, they kind of get frozen. Like, oh my god, what are they get the choice paralysis. Like, I have so many things I want to do. So did you run into artists with those issues?
There was a couple that were pretty surprised. They said, "Well, okay, so what type of thing do you want me to do?" I said, "Anything you want to come up with." And they are okay, but what kind of monster, or what kind of thing? Any you do it, and you. So yeah, there was a couple of them that kind of balked at first, but then after they were done, they were like, "Oh man, this is one of the most fun things I've ever done." So I think they appreciated the freedom with it as well. So yeah, it was really good all around.
Nice. That's good to hear. Like to see if some other people can come up with projects like that and see which direction they go. But I do know that that choice paralysis can really hit artists hard at times.
Yeah. Well, and that's the case with anything, really. I mean, if you're a writer, and somebody says, "Well, just write me a story." Okay, about what? Whatever you want. Oh well, okay.
uh,
Um, or even with being a GM or being a player, if I know I've had several campaigns where somebody said, "Okay, well, here's the world. What do you want to play?" I don't know. What's everybody else playing?
yeah,
Let me
and
see.
I'll be honest. I do get frustrated at times when I have players like, "What do you want to play?" They're like, "Oh, what should I play?" I'm like, do you get choices yours? It's
What?
like the old joke asking your significant other, "Where do you want to go for dinner?" And you're like, "I don't
Mhm.
care." I'm like, "What about McDonald's?" "No, not McDonald's." "What about
No, I
Arby's?"
don't
"No, not Arby's." It's like, so do you know? You just don't want to tell me?
want.
Someone asked, "Do you have a favorite piece of art that you've got out of these projects?"
Oh wow.
'Cause I'm intrigued by this just because it is so totally backwards of how something like this would normally go. You just get somebody that sits down and compiles a ton of magical items. Go, "Oh hey, can you draw me something for this?" And just get people to um, you know draw based on your descriptor. So doing the project entirely backwards of the normal process.
Yeah.
Uh, Super
I
intriguing.
mean, almost like asking me to pick my favorite child, but it's.
Oh come
I
on,
will
every
say
parent's got a favorite child.
it's true. Um, but I will say that uh, there's an evolving artifact in the Incredible Items book that it starts off as a mace, and basically is just like a a staff stick with a globe on top, and as the thing progresses, the globe begins to crack, and the whole thing cracks. And there's a kind of a tentacled, one-eyed creature that comes out of it that's part of the item. Um, and by the end, it's got like um, the pieces of the globe are still around it, but they glow, and you've got this, like I said, this one-eyed creature with a few arms that are out, and everything. It's just an incredibly cool piece. So look for that one.
Let's see. Somebody asked, uh, do you have a kind of an expectation of what you're gonna get, and how often are you usually like completely surprised? Things like you've done this twice now, with the creatures and the items. Is there's do you have in your head kind of like, okay, um, I'm gonna ask for staff. I know this artist. I'm gonna kind of know where they're gonna go, and have they ever just come back with something entirely uh, different in the wheelhouse than you were anticipating?
Well, uh, that one, I mean, that one I just described was kind of one of those. I asked for a mace or hammer, and that was all I said. And that's what they came up with. And like I said, it was just amazing. And the writer that worked on it as well did a fantastic job. It's got each evolution has two ways you can go with it, depending on how you act with the the uh, the item. Um, but that was the artist was Maple Dragoon, by the way, and the writer on that one was Kirsty Kidd. And again, they just did a fabulous job. Um, but not really. I really didn't. I tried not to have any expectations when I asked for stuff. And again, most of those. I mean, the artifacts. Yes, I asked for kind of a specific thing, but there anything else with both of these projects, I just said, just give me what you got. I want it all.
I again find this super fascinating because it is so out of the norm of how these are typically created. Um,
Hmm.
and occasionally, talking to some of the bigger, those medium to large size companies that do like creature books, sometimes they'll have an artist like, hey, I drew this a long time ago, can we work this in? But that's a little
Hmm.
different than going, hey, draw something, we'll come up with the rules for it.
Right. Well, and I tried to actually, in some ways, take the same approach with Apocalypse here. Just to, what would one thing would you want to do? And they've all come back, like I said before, with totally different things to give advice on. And the same thing is happening with the scenarios as well. I have not had to go back to somebody yet, and say, well, this person's doing something kind of similar, so let's pick something else. But and we've got, I think, the scenarios, the adventures will really redefine what you consider an apocalypse in many instances. There's some pretty wild stuff, I have to say, in what we've got coming. So,
Hey, so I was thinking about how I would come at it, and I've got some ideas that because it's making me think about how I've done end of the world type scenarios and how I would, from all my experiences of playing over the years or running games over the years, and how I would come at it differently to make it more entertaining. Because I haven't
mhm,
done an end of the world scenario in a while, and thinking of all the movies I've seen and all the stories that I've told or written or GM'd through, and it's like, yeah, there's many of those that I could clean up and make so much better nowadays.
mhm. Well, and then, I mean, there's just so many ways to end the world. I
Yeah,
mean, you want zombies? Do you want nuclear holocaust? Do you want magic going wild and destroying the world? Time bubbles. There's just any number of things that you can come up with to just completely mess up your world.
Yeah, and I actually, it's kind of funny because I am working on a series of stories right now. It is something I would like to work into an RPG in the future that is right exactly in this realm, um, and it's kind of fun and entertaining to think of it that way because I never thought of it as an end of the world scenario because in this series, basically the Earth disappears and it's colonies that have to go on and they can't communicate back to the home world anymore. So that's
Hmm.
an apocalypse. It's like all these colony worlds that relied on Earth that now no longer have anything to communicate back to. It's like, oh, what happens from there? Do you continue on
Right.
as this federation, or are you going to separate up, or then I have other things going on in these stories and everything.
Yeah, and there's at least one or two of the articles that kind of deal with, well, what happens after,
Yeah,
um, and so and that's another way to take your campaign too, is to say, okay, well, this particular world-ending event happened that changed the world forever. What are the people doing to pick up the pieces? How do we move on after
yeah.
that? So
Because is the end of the world the end, or is it the end of what we know and the start of something new?
exactly, right. And apocalypses, in at least the way we're looking at it, you can take it as a local event, like Mount Vesuvius blowing up and destroying Pompeii was in that area an apocalyptic
Absolutely.
event. But it didn't affect the entire world,
Yeah.
just that region.
It was definitely
And
the end of the world for a lot of people that day.
it certainly was, right. And in that area, that region was never the same, afterward. So you can have a locally based apocalyptic event, or it can be a global or even universal.
Yeah.
So it
Well, I
just depends
mean,
on.
even here in the Pacific Northwest, when Mount St. Helens blew, we were able to
Yeah,
get people out of the way. There was a handful of people that died that made the choice to stay, but if that would have happened 100 years prior, it would have killed anybody living in the area because they wouldn't have known. But
right.
on the back end, um, now Washington State grows 80% of all the hops grown in the North America because of the changes of the soil. We now
Hmm.
have wonderful soil for wineries, and our apples got even better.
Right.
So just because it was
Well,
an
and you,
apocalypse for some people doesn't mean there isn't a follow-on.
yeah, exactly. And again, another one of the articles is, well, um, one person's apocalypse, just like one person's trash is another person's treasure. So
Exactly.
there's there's always going to be, somebody, if it isn't a like a natural disaster, there may be some entity that is actually wanting this to happen. Well, what do they get out of it? And something else to consider as you're building a campaign.
Yeah. And giant meteorite took out the dinosaurs and made it possible for tiny little mammals to take over.
Right.
um, let's see. Oh, was there a piece of art that you had to say no to?
No.
Well, I like that. That was simple. But again, you're coming at it from an entirely different direction. So it's you're getting art and going, oh, hey, this is cool art. Let's work with this. Let's go somewhere. Versus this doesn't fit into what we have established.
Yeah. No. I was trying to think if there was anybody that they. I mean, because I had a number of artists, and each of them kind of submitted a bunch of stuff, but I can only actually there was only one I can think that we didn't end up using, and that's only because the artist didn't really finish it. So no.
Oh, gotta love artists sometimes. Let's see. You're an established genre novelist. have any of the plots or events of your novels ever started from or been adapted from RPG sessions or campaigns? Because I know a lot of authors that do take notes during their role playing sessions to,
Sure.
that they throw into books.
Yeah. Boy, I mean, the first series, which is a fantasy series, but it's a bit contemporary as well, is about it's about a group of kids, junior high school age kids that go on a field trip, and they all get transported to another world. Um, but they've all got their Game Boys and devices with them, whatever, and so and they all work in the new place. But there's certainly some elements of that definitely reached back into my D&D early D&D days, and like there's multi different colors of dragons and things like that in there, um, but nothing really directly that I can think of, either way. The science fantasy series that I did is a time traveler kind of thing. Yeah, but I can't think of anything particular that directly related to any role playing stuff that I did. Now, someday maybe I'd love to do something like that, uh, play wise or whatever. But yeah, that's an interesting question. I hadn't really thought about it before. But um, yeah, the plus the writing that I did kind of came before this period of time where I got back into gaming. So I guess that was made it a little bit separate, I suppose.
So from here on out, you'll have the notepad sitting next to you while you
Oh,
play.
absolutely.
I know somebody that's a writer and was playing in a one shot at an event, and I looked over and I was like, are you taking notes?" He's like, "Absolutely." He goes, "There's some just gold little nuggets in here that I'm going to expand into awesome things." Just happened
Yep,
he was he's working on a fantasy book and playing in a fantasy game, and he's like, the just creative gold from everybody feeding off each other. That collaborative storytelling.
yep,
And if you're writing, you're looking for inspiration everywhere.
absolutely. Yep.
Um, so, what was your catalyst for doing the apocalypse? So, I mean, I get the creatures and the items. That one's easier to understand. Then, why go the direction of creating a book for GMs to jump off of for apocalyptic events?
Well, in the group, we have a number of mentors, and then we've brought in the people we've encouraged to come in are BIPOC and other marginalized group creators, and we've got a group of mentors that are there to offer advice, bounce questions off of ideas, all that type of thing. That's kind of the basis for the group. But we were within the mentor group. We were discussing, well, okay, what's our next project? And we had several ideas, but it was I'm not even sure what really sparked this with me, but I just had the notion that again that every every GM at some point or another wants to run a campaign where the characters are out there to try to save the world, save the universe. And I got to thinking about it and thought, well, that's something that everybody wants to do, but how do you do it well? And what are the steps that you need to take? And then, like I said, I thought about, well, what if we do this and we ask a bunch of people that are really kind of well known in the industry that question, and let's see what they come up with. And like I said, we did that and started getting all these ideas back, and thought, well, I think we've got something here, because everybody, especially as soon as I uh, told them what the title of the book was, everybody was like, "Ooh,
Well, yeah,
that
it's
sounds
like
good."
I've been sitting here thinking the whole time, like, if I was putting together an article for something like this, what advice would I give? What direction would I go? It's made
Mhm.
made me rethink all of the games that I have run, all the. So it's a really neat idea, and it is one of those things that most GMs that have played a game want to dabble in at least once. So it is kind of a cool idea.
Mhm. Well, thanks. We think so too.
Um, it's just, and I'll be honest, I'm still transfixed by the idea of art first. Was
It's okay.
on that one. So a lot of people going to Kickstarter, they're asking for art, or they're asking for funds to get to print and to get more art. So was especially if you're going out to get the creative bits first, the typically more expensive bits, because like even with Apocalypse, you're reaching out to individuals to put into the book before it's
Mhm.
funded. Uh, have you found that as a big hurdle? Going, okay, now I've paid for the art. Now let's put everything together.
Well, yeah. I mean, I have to say I'm fortunate to be in a position where I can do these things before the funding is done. I can kind of gauge, okay, well, I can guess that this is gonna cost about this much, whatever, and I can, because of the past success of some of the things that I've done, and just the position that I'm in, I can say, okay, yeah, I'm gonna get X number of pieces of art, or I'm going to, um, uh, go out and get these people to write articles and scenarios and stuff, to begin with, and then as funding goes, we'll expand. And again, fortunately, so far we've done well with the Kickstarters. This one still has a little over 2 weeks left, and we're just about to our goal, which was quite a bit higher, honestly, than the other, two projects. Um, and so we're happy with that, and hopefully it'll balloon up and be big, and we'll be able to add even more adventures and articles and things like that to the book, as it goes. So.
And I don't have a doubt that you'll actually fund. I mean, you guys are so close now. Um, you're less than $900 away, um, and we'll put some noise out about it. So hopefully we can get you some more people, because again, I really do like the idea of it, because it's there is more than one way to come at an apocalypse, and the ability to kind of just swap in your own bits and pieces into it is always really cool.
And the scenario adventures too, there's a lot of them that would be able to be just run as a one shot. Doesn't have to be an entire campaign,
Hmm.
uh, or they could be the seed for a whole campaign, just depending on how you wanted to approach it. But again, what we're trying to do is give GMs as many tools as they can, as we can, to facilitate a cool game for them.
Let me check chat. Oh, our European guest saying good night.
Ah.
uh, it is rough doing streams at this time, because well, now we're streaming to both Twitch and YouTube, so it's automatically right up on YouTube when within about 15 minutes after we're done live streaming.
Oh, okay.
Um, so our European friends can uh, jump in for a little late night chat, and then a lot of them will dip out early, then they'll watch the next day, which is nice. Um, what's been your biggest inspiration for putting anything into this particular product or project, the Apocalypse one.
Well, I've already written. I wrote a kind of a sample scenario for the writers to just kind of see the sort of thing that we wanted to do with the, like I was talking about before, the characters that are involved, and just laying out this kind of general scenario to make it more friendly for a whole bunch of systems, not just D&D or anything in particular. And so I wrote that up, and that was one of our first 48-hour perks. That'll be something that those people will get as a PDF. It's not going to be in the book, but that'll be something a little extra that they get for that. I wrote one of the articles that's going to be going in there. I'll probably write another adventure that'll go in the book as well. But I really, in doing these, what I love is getting to work with people from all over the world, all walks of life, and just kind of feed off of that diversity. It's just, again, it's just amazing to me. It's one of the reasons I love this hobby, is getting to see and meet and talk to and brainstorm with people that are just coming from a completely different space than myself, and to be able to collaborate and come together on these projects and make something that's truly greater than the sum of its parts when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I always love meeting people from like different backgrounds and cultures, and I keep talking to people about, like, I want to see more games using mythology from different places. What is it? Free League. They've got their Vasen. It's a horror RPG based on Swedish folklore, which we've gone deep into, like, Norse, all these fighting games and stuff, but going into late 1800s Swedish folklore horror, and then they're slowly going around to other parts of Europe to start pulling in their folklore to be brought into that same horror game, which, a lot of people are like, oh, I know the fairy tales of, Europe. And it's like, oh, I bet you really haven't read them. Like The Little Mermaid, way creepier than The Little Mermaid from Disney. Hansel and Gretel, not really. So even the things that we know, we don't know them because we've really experienced a sweet and saccharine version of so many things, because that's how media has just put a spin on it, because everybody wants something nice, and you get a company like Free League that is now putting out. You're looking, you're going, oh, hey, these things are way creepier than I thought. You find out, elves that can turn into, like, demons and stuff. You're like they used to tell this to kids, and it's like, yeah, it's how they kept their kids straight and how they kept them from going out after dark or wandering off. You're just like, oh. And I love it. Coyote and Crow did a futuristic version RPG, bringing in a lot of Native American mythology, which I thought was really cool. There's one coming out with using African mythology. It was successful on Kickstarter recently, so I look forward to getting my hands on that one. There's some from South America, and it's growing. It's really fun to see role-playing games really expand past, because it was a very North American centric game for a very long time. It got into Japan a little bit, and it's taken a long time to really get role-playing games elsewhere. Sweden came up with their own because D&D wasn't available in the 80s. So you can see where there's some, but it was just never sold big, and now it's gotten huge.
Yeah. And yeah, and it's like, for instance, it reminded me, Connie Chang is another one of our writers on Apocalypse, and they're doing a uh, they're doing a scenario with I believe it's a maybe a dark sorcerer or somebody. Anyway, they've captured the last Killen, I believe it is how it's pronounced, but it's a mythical beast from Chinese folklore that they're using as the basis for their apocalypse, and I'm just can't wait to see what that is, and be able to dive into that and be a whole lot of fun.
And somebody in the chat reminded me of one that was successful on Kickstarter recently, Sina Una. It's a Filipino based 5e. It's 5e based game, but it's all Filipino
Oh, uh-huh.
folklore and stuff. Which
Cool.
I discovered it like right after it closed, because sometimes going through Kickstarter as much as I do, there's so many RPGs on there. It's funny because they did really well, and you're like, how did I miss this one? I search a
Yeah.
couple times a week, and you're going, oh, I just missed this. How did I've looked 2 times a week for the last 5 weeks that this was available. Um,
Yeah. That discovery thing is always a tricky
Yeah, well, and
tricky.
it's like you type in tabletop, and then you just get board games. You type in tabletop role playing game, and then it gives you uh, dice and STL files. You type in TTRPG, and you're like, oh, hey, I get more. And then you're like, and then you unless you know the name of it, or it just popped up the one time you typed it in, and you're like,
Hmm.
how did this one not come across my desk at all?
Yeah.
I wish all of the crowdfunding sites actually had like a better tagging system.
Yeah. Yeah. It's too. I mean, I would prefer to use something other than Kickstarter at this point, but I know I talked to a lot of people, and I ran one on GameFound.
GameFound's getting better and better.
Past year it did better, but yeah, it still is just a far cry from the power of the big boy, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But hopefully
Well,
somebody will get up there and give it some
yeah.
competition.
And the more we use GameFound, and I like to try to kind of push GameFound because it is tabletop gaming centric. Um, so you get people that are looking for your type of product versus Kickstarter, where you get toys and you get people reselling stuff that they bought on AliExpress as a new invention. It's like, no, that's not a new invention. Like, I can literally go buy that for $4. You're trying to sell it to me, early adopter at 35. But and that's always been my problem with Kickstarter. Is it's there's so much stuff, and a lot of it is just junk.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I'm still bitter about the potato salad person a number of years ago, because I was trying to do something to raise funds. I wanted to get some equipment so that I could set up and record um, veterans at the VA hospitals telling stories, so they could record their memories before they're lost. Because I was in Kickstarter said, this doesn't seem like a well fleshed out product. I was like, really? I know exactly what I need. I know exactly what I want to do. And you got a guy that wants to make potato salad that's blowing up on your platform right now, but someone that wants to go out and like collect the memories of veterans, because it was I'd been in the honor guard a number of years ago, did a funeral for a gentleman, and he had been in the Air Force in the early '60s, and as we were leaving, a family member comes running up and it's like, "Why were you guys here?" And said, "Oh, well," asked what relation. It was his grandfather, and I said, "Well, your grandfather had served in the Air Force," and then nobody in the family knew, because after he got out of high school, he joined the military, did 4 years, got out right at the did a tour in Vietnam, got out right after that, and then came home and then got married, and his wife never knew he served. His family never
Oh,
knew he served, and I'm going, wonder how many people are like that. They can't tell, like they've not been able to share the stories, or they've got bad memories, but they need a way, shape, or form to get them off their chest. And I wanted to be able to go in and set up times for gentlemen to come and men and women to come and tell their stories, and be able to say, hey, here's a disc or a file or whatever, that when you are ready to share, whether it's now or after you pass, here's something you can share with your family or those that you need to.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
And I got told that wasn't a good enough idea, but potato salad
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe I still hold a little grudge against Kickstarter over that one.
Understandable.
It is something that I would like to do still, and I'd actually just like to convince a lot of people to do that. Go around to their local VA and set up those appointments. Question. So let's back on your stuff. A little less depressing. How much has the past 2 years changed your approach to putting projects together? Has it been harder, easier, or opened unexpected opportunities?
Oh boy, I would say a little bit all of that. It I started doing collaborative projects on the DMs Guild not too long after I put out a few adventures of my own, and then I got into I had an idea to do a piece that's free, actually. You can still get it for free on the DMs Guild, of just encounters. And the idea was that it's called so a vampire and a cleric walk into a tavern, and each of the encounters is such and so walk into a tavern. And so I had a bunch of writers get together, and we just read. They're basically just one-page encounters um, of that, and we just did it kind of as a lark, and used it as an advertising tool. Everybody got to plug their own stuff in there, and all of that type of thing. But I really enjoyed, again, just the collaborative process of it, and seeing what other people would come up with for things. And we ended up doing a couple more of that type of theme thing, a year or two later. But otherwise, it's been sometimes it's difficult to get people to do what they say they're going to do in the time frame that they're going to do it. Of course, that's just human nature. Some people,
The nature of all collaborative projects.
people, either life comes up, or there's just some people that just have a problem with deadlines. And but honestly, for the most part, it's just been a terrific process. And yeah, I can't think of anything specifically that was terribly unexpected, I guess, other than the fact that just how much I really enjoy it. Maybe that's it. But
And that's the big key. You just got to always be happy at what you're doing. If you're not happy,
absolutely.
seek out another path in life.
Yes.
And it's a big difference than being frustrated or whatever. Because I know, like, I'm frustrated with what I'm doing right now. It's like, well, is it still what you want to do, or you just you've hit a rough patch in there.
Yeah, there's always obstacles to overcome that sometimes aren't the most fun, but it's all part of the process.
Getting some people to understand that just because you're having a rough time doesn't mean it's not that you're not on a path that's where you need to be.
Yeah.
Because I run into people, and I also love running into people that ask me about the library, like, oh, I want to do what you do, and then an hour later they're like, hey, can you come to our event? Because they think they want to be on my path, and then they realize that my path has been pretty bonkers.
Yeah.
As will some of the people in our chat will attest to. Because I don't know if they came along for the ride or if they were just standing around and I sucked them up and they were like, "What's going on?" One of them happens to be my wife. It's been really awesome. Um, what do you have in the future after Apocalypse? I know you want to finish this off and get it into people's hands, but I guarantee you have ideas for your next cool project.
um,
And will it be another backwards project?
I honestly I don't right now. I have a campaign setting that I was working on, but between Spelljammer and Planescape coming out, that is kind of on the back burner. it was it was pretty much that, and so I'm still actually running. I have a game on Wednesdays that I run an online game that is in that setting, but it's very bonkers. It's very science fantasy, and we've gone 1 week from raiding a wizard's tower to find a book to going to a place called Far Space 10, and adventuring there. So it's it's been a lot of fun, but again, with the advent, I didn't get anything out soon enough before Spelljammer and Planescape came out to make that work. But I don't really know, honestly. I'm doing a lot with the co-op itself, and we're kind of trying to get that to grow a bit and see what else we can come up with. So
So what made you want to do the co-op? Because that's an interesting one. And how is it grown over the years?
it's it's really just probably about a year, not even quite a year old, I guess, at this point. But we I just saw, looking online and various social media places, I saw kind of a need for uh, people who really want to get involved in the industry, um, but just don't know how to start, or where to go.
It is
And
a weird world to dance around in.
mhm, yeah, and especially for people of color and other marginalized groups. And I didn't see anywhere, something like this. And I thought, well, here I am, an old white guy, uh, trying to start something for people of color. But I reached out to several people I knew, to come on and be mentors. And it's very laid back that way. There's not a lot that they're asked to do, but they're available for people to ask questions or get advice, and they also help out with our projects and things like that. So um, we eventually my goal is to eventually hand that off to a group of either a committee or person, whatever, that wants to take it over. But for me, it was, I had the means at the time, and thought, okay, let's get this started. I'll see if I can get it rolling, and then maybe I can hand it off to somebody who's a little more appropriate.
Yeah, somebody
But
in chat says they love the mentorship idea, and that's a big thing because within the industry, whether you want to be an artist, a writer, a designer, um, getting someone to mentor you or kind of give you that handhold for a little while to get you one comfortable within the industry, get you some contacts with the industry, get you through some projects because getting in, you know, there's so many ways to try to get into the industry. And people are like, oh, hey, this person made it because they had a big Kickstarter. Well, some of that is luck, some of it is, just right place, right time. But if you can get a mentorship, get somebody to help you, you go, hey, these are the things I did that were really dumb. You should probably not do those. Because sometimes
yeah,
that's the more important advice than hey, this is what I did right. Because sometimes what you did 10 years ago may not have a great avenue now, but going, hey, I did a lot of stupid things when I was younger trying to get into the industry, or I accepted bad contracts, or things like that. There's so many things a good mentor can do to get young creators off in a much better direction than than creators have been for years.
Right. Yeah, and that's the group is basically in Discord. Is kind of where we're based, and it's a um, it's a situation where anybody can go into. We've got channels for writers, for artists, for all the various disciplines, and you go in there and say, hey, I've got this thing coming up, or I have this question, whatever, and then anybody, either members or the mentors, can jump in and say, well, here's what I found with this, or here's my experience, that type of thing. And it's just again, it's just a way to ask the dumb questions that everybody has at one time or another when you're starting out something new, and that everybody can jump in and say, well, here's my experience with this, take it as you will, and then they can form their opinions and a plan of action based on that. So,
It's the old saying, the only dumb question is one that's never asked.
yeah.
Unless you watch the TV show Wings back in the day, then there was a great episode about a guy who just asked questions over and over again, and at one point he's like, what kind of medication do they give you if a monkey bites you? And they were asking him, like, why do you ask so many questions? Like, my mom always said there's no such thing as a dumb question. He goes, you ever run that monkey question by him? So that's always my reference to, like, the true dumb questions I run into every now and then. You hand somebody a schedule and it says, start time 10 a.m. It's like, okay, what time do we start? Right there.
It's right there. Yeah.
That's a monkey. That's the monkey question. If
do the reading first.
Yes. I run into what I call the monkey question from time to time. That's a reference back to an old TV show, Wings. And crazy to think a '90s show that was big in the '90s is old.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's in. There's and the really frustrating thing is I've worked with a lot of high school kids and at-risk teens, and they're like, oh, I don't want to ask. It's a stupid question. I was like, how do you know it's a stupid question? I was like, go ahead and ask it. I was like, I'm not going to make fun of you for asking the question. And I was like, and if you're embarrassed to ask in front of people, like, we can step over here. You can write it down. And
if it's a question you don't know the answer to, and it's not in materials that are presented to you, then it's not a dumb question.
Exactly. Like, hey, ask the question, and then we'll walk through it and find out do you have the answer. Do you have the availability to answer? Is it something that I can answer for you, or something that we can get you the answer?
Or teach you how to find the answer.
That's a huge thing. I love giving people the power to answer their own questions, and hopefully the people I've taught that stuff to go on about it to do the same thing for others in the future. Because I talk to people that I did cool stuff with in the military, and they're like, oh, why do you volunteer doing that? And I was like, why don't you? And they're like, I don't know. I was like, it's a couple hours out of my week. I can go do something cool. I can give some knowledge that I have, and hopefully, inspire some kids to go on and do some great things in the world and be better, citizens, and do good things for their neighbors. And hopefully, they can go on and do better things. And with mentor programs, it's exactly what you need to be doing, is inspiring them to do cool, awesome, better things, no matter whether it's mentoring students or mentoring up and coming creators, giving them the tools to hopefully navigate roadblocks that you've run into or tripped over or stumbled across over the years.
Yeah, exactly. At the end of the day, really, I just want to make cool stuff and help other people make cool stuff.
And making cool stuff, that always puts a smile on my face. I always like showing off. I'll pick up. I like having books on my desk and be like, hey, have you tried this? Or hey, I'm gonna get a landslide of books today. Or having silly things like this, the Dallas RPG, And hopefully that inspires somebody to go out and make RPGs off of things that you would never think would be made into an RPG, because this was came out in '80, when just before the Satanic Panic, when everybody's like, I can make an RPG too.
Yep.
And they're like, oh, Satanic Panic, let's not make RPGs anymore.
Yeah.
Which was funny because it was great for sales.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have a question from our Patreon. And so we got somebody that donates to us on Patreon. He just asks us to always ask this question. He goes, so it's hot dogs or tacos?
Oh, tacos.
I think I got to go through all our interviews because I'm pretty sure tacos is winning. And it's weird because I'm torn. I love both.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that I don't like a good hot dog, but definitely tacos.
Because I like to say, I was like, you kind of have like traveling around, especially like North America, you've got like restaurant tacos, you got the street truck tacos, then you got the fast food tacos. You kind of know what you're always going to get, within reason there. But with hot dogs, wherever you travel in the U.S., you're going to find everybody's got a specialty dog.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Which I've always found interesting. And then somebody a couple weeks ago was like, yeah, because you gotta dress up the dog, and I was like, oh. Is there anything that you would like to throw out to anybody that's watching now or in the future?
Well, just the obvious. Go support that Kickstarter. We want to make this big and big and beautiful as we possibly can. But I guess, yeah, just take your time. Take a time out of the day if you can, and think about how you can help somebody else do something.
It is great. My dad always said, if you see a problem, why complain about it? Especially if you can go do something about it. And
Mm-hmm.
as a kid, I would go do cleanups of the creeks, and I did all the roadside cleanups and stuff. And one of the things with the library is I've been able to go game with veterans with PTSD, or reach out to at-risk teens and little groups, and I'm trying to get back into that as we kind of come back to normal life again. And it's a way for me to do exactly what my dad said. I get frustrated that we're really bad at, especially teenage boys, teenage girls too, but more often than not, it's teenage boys. They start going down a wrong path, and everybody's like, oh well, whatever, or oh, it's because of this, or oh, because of that, and people are really easy. It's really easy to write them off, and
Mm-hmm.
I grew up seeing that happen, and I saw my dad reach out to people, and helped. I don't know how many. We had random kids sleep on our couch from time to time because they came into the comic book store, and he gave them a hand. So if I can give a kid a role playing game book and kind of put them down a slightly different path, I will happily always do that. Any chance I can get to try to get a kid to not go to juvenile hall, I will try my damnedest to do that. And or if it's somebody coming out of drug or alcohol rehab, if they want to come and play role playing games as an outlet to do something better, I will do what I can to either be there for them or find them a group, or because we've become really bad at helping each other in especially in this country.
Yeah.
Everybody sits there on their phone or social media. You're a horrible person. No, you're a horrible person. It's really easy to do that behind a little 7-inch screen in your bathroom. It's a lot harder
Yeah.
to do that when you sit down and you're face to face with somebody and you see, a real person, and you get to talking to them, and you're like, you know what? Let's play a game. Let's share a story. Let's share a moment. Let's be real people in a made-up world.
Yeah, I'm actually getting on a plane tomorrow morning to go to Gamehole Con, and this will be the first big convention I've been at since I think '87, maybe.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and I'm really excited to go see a lot of these, several of these people that I've been working with over the past 2, 3, 4 years, and just know as a face on a screen, or or just an email name almost, in many cases. But yeah, I'm very excited to do that. Looking forward to it.
Where's Gamehole at? I
Man,
know someone from
Madison,
Gamehole.
Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah, I know somebody reached out to us to go, but yeah, it's we went to so many shows this year, um, and we just trying to get sponsorships. Lackey in our chat said one day Gamehole Con, one day. Lackey is a huge help to the library. Um, and he probably doesn't know that Gamehole Con has reached out to us. Um, but that was before the cough, because I still don't know if there's any restrictions on saying. I know all the streaming platforms and everything. Can't say it.
No.
So now it's just like a running gag. Everybody just says the thing or the.
Hmm.
um, but yes, Lackey, Gamehole Con has reached out to us in the past, and if we can get the funding, we'll reach back out to them to go down there. And he's probably at home like, I hate you. Well, it has been a blast. I actually look forward to. I'm gonna back. I'm actually gonna back the Apocalypse, and I would love to get my hands on the other books because, again, starting with the art is a really cool idea, and it's nice that you were able to have the means to start off that direction and do a really inspired project because doing it that way it is much tougher financially because like I said, the only people I know that have done anything like that is they've got artists that they've worked with. They go, oh, have this thing. Can we make it into something? But that's
Hmm.
very different than going, hey, draw stuff. We'll turn it into we'll get it rules.
Yeah. Well, I actually have those as add-ons if you, on this Kickstarter, if you want to go that route, or again, you can purchase them through Drive-Thru RPG, or Amazon if you want physical copies as well. So, but you can, again, you can do those as add-ons for on this Apocalypse Kickstarter, and we also have some cool T-shirts too.
Nice. So yeah, let's see. We'll talk about because normally on Mondays I talk about different stuff on Kickstarters. We'll do news and we'll do so we'll do donations, news, and then crowdfunding. Um,
Terrific, thank you.
so we will definitely talk about it, and then you got a bunch of different goals here or pledge levels.
Hmm.
So, tw- did I miss something? Let's see. $20 gets you the PDF version, the map files for virtual tabletop. That's not a bad entry point. 45 gets you the physical book, the PDF, and the tabletop virtual tabletop files. 75 gets you a signed version and the PDF and the map files. And 225 gets you signed hardback, the PDF, map files, the Incredible Creatures hardback and PDF, and Incredible Items hardback and PDF, T-shirt, and all stretch goals.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm being reminded that we so in the emails Carissa had sent back and forth with you. Did she covered the player character confessional?
Not that I recall, but
Uh
go
oh.
ahead. Hit me
So
with it.
well, we'll ask people to give a player character confessional. So take a moment to think about one time when you had a character that did something that like really derailed or wiped out a party or something, and then tell us what system, a little bit about the character. So hey, it was a D&D 3.0. It was a half dwarf, half drow named Jordan, and he was a ranger. And then pause and in character tell us about and it's like, okay, there I was up on the cliff and the rest of my party was down at the bottom, and I happened to ring the bell that woke up the red dragon, but I had the two gems that everybody was looking for. I probably could have helped them take out the red dragon, but they.
Oh my, let me think. Um, my problem is I'm usually playing the goody two shoe.
Oh, it's even funnier when the
Um,
goody two shoe does against the party lights. because
um,
because then it's totally accidental. Like, well, I didn't see that coming.
yeah, golly.
Or you were nice and got the entire party into a big fight or a new storyline, or it doesn't
Yeah,
have to be a party wipe.
the only thing that really pops into my head is I was playing a tiefling paladin named Radiance. Um, they were just call him Ray, and um, we were we were returning a shipment of some they were like golden apples, some sort of like magical apples that had been stolen, and we were returning them to the merchant that they had been stolen from. And there was a group of street urchins there as we were coming into the town, and Ray felt sorry for them, and he doled out several of these very expensive, very magical apples to the children, um, and they were of course delighted with that. And the party was not very happy that Ray had Ray had
So
given away some of the spoils to. So then he ended up having to, and he was happy to do it, but he had to make it good with the merchant who was shorted some of his product on on the way back.
so now, tell us that in character as Ray.
Um, let's see. I'm trying to remember what sort of voice I did for him. Did did you want an apple? We have some wonderful apples here. Yes, yes. Oh well, of course. Here you go. And in the meantime, in the background, the rest of the party's going, wait, 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 no, 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 don't do that. What are you doing? And uh, yeah, again, he proceeded to hand out all of these apples to the children. Not all of the apples, but there was a significant amount of apples that we had to be replaced. I'm very sorry, but your shipment is short. Some apples. I will have to work to recompense you, sir, but it was for a good cause.
Nice. See, even good characters, Goody Two Shoes can have. Even Goody Two Shoes can have their moments where where the party's like, oh man. Well, thank you for coming on. I'm going to keep an eye on the Apocalypse Kickstarter. Um, it'll finish up right around 2 weeks, so I think we'll have a couple news days between now and then, and we'll um, make sure we cover it. I'll keep it on my radar, and we'll have to keep in contact because I'm really intrigued by this. I want to see this because uh, I do talk about a lot. I love to go over GM tools because being a new GM is overwhelming, and then also just being a GM at times, a lot of people become the forever GM, and you kind of get in that rut. And having this is story decks from 1985 games, having little tools like this just at hand.
Yep. Yeah, you
It's
need some
just
inspiration. You absolutely need things to inspire you.
absolutely. And there's some of there's cool little card prompts that just take you out of your comfort zone, and you go, oh, I've got to create a story on the fly with this. yes, let's do it.
Hmm.
And maybe a horrible game, and everybody goes, okay, let's not do that again. But you learn from it. Um, but then hopefully you'll get another group that's loves it, and it pushes you and makes you a better GM over every time you do something like that.
Yeah.
And then just getting books like Apocalypse, it's you know it's something people think about, but not necessarily. It's like, hey, what would I do in my current campaign? How would I do this? Oh, hey, what if we do this where a they're going after some big baddie, and they're put to sleep, and they go through this apocalyptic scenario, and if they come out the other side, there's a reward for them or something, and there's a ton of ways that you can do this, and without even necessarily making it apocalypse even.
Hmm.
So it's just getting the tools into the hands of the GMs that need it is always rough, but it's always good to see them when they get it. So, how can people contact you?
You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Tucker Author. Um, that's usually the easiest. And the Indie Games Co-op is at Indie Games underscore COOP.
The coop.
The Coop, yeah.
Um,
Cooperative was too long for a handle, so I had to shorten it to
yeah.
that.
um, yeah. I was really happy that we were able to get ours, because I feared that other people had used ours already, but apparently not. Um,
And I do have a website too, alantucker.net. You can find my fiction and other things like that on there as well. So
nice. And I
if you're
think
doing that sort of thing.
and on Twitch, Carissa has been putting the links in the chat, and on YouTube, we will we'll put them in the in all the down below, the doobly doo, or whatever people call
Yeah,
it.
that's right.
And it's been great talking to you. I, you now have me thinking about how I would write something for your book, um, and I really do like the direction that you went with art first, and then creating, because I guarantee that everybody that worked on that was like, oh, because they probably
Yeah.
got all their creative juices going. Like, I can create a story for this. Really neat to really. What is this legendary item now?
Hmm. Yep, definitely. We had a lot of happy creators for sure. It was they were working on these things.
That makes me happy. Just because again, coming at it from an entirely different direction is super awesome. I love it. So, well, it's been wonderful having you on. Anything you want to say before we go? Before we call it an evening?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Great. And everybody, if it's still live, go check out Apocalypse on Kickstarter. Links are in the chat or down below, and you can find Alan on the social medias. And if you want to help out the library, well, I tell everybody we're looking for three kinds of donations: people's time, books, or money. We've been getting books over the years. We've got some amazing volunteers, and we definitely need funds. That way we can get to more places. It is expensive to drag thousands of pounds of books across the country to events. Um, and we love what we
Imagine.
do, and we love meeting individuals like Alan here. We love meeting everyone that we have met over the years. I think there's only a couple people that I have not been enriched by through the library. Uh, it's a joke. Everybody that's come through the library has actually been really awesome. We've met some really amazing people over the years, and with that, the library is now closed. And everyone have a good night.